Chicago Bulls Media Day 2024 just happened, and we're going to talk about it, my thoughts, my reactions, all the things that come out, and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I am the host here, Haize. More importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content after I take a sip of my water. Now, with that said, Media Day is now wrapped up in the books, the unofficial start to the 2024-25 season for the Chicago Bulls. And we got quite a bit of details to come out of this. I think one of the biggest ones, first off, initially to kind of talk about is Arturas Karnisovas, Billy Donovan, talking about the team, right? And I think ultimately Arturas came out and, like kind of expected, started off by saying, hey, the last time I talked to you guys, I told you guys to expect some change. And he highlighted the fact that change came. He said that the last group didn't get it done. They understand that they had to move forward with the new group, has faith in this group. And then Billy Donovan reaffirmed that basically they don't know how many games they're going to win this year, but they're trying to build an environment for these players where you're competing, and that is going to help the development along. And I think that that's the best route, right? Like they're not going to come out outwardly and say that they're tanking or anything. He was asked directly if keeping the top 10 protected pick was a priority. He kind of sidestepped that conversation without really answering it directly. Billy Donovan then followed that up by basically saying, hey, we don't know. We're going to be competing. We're young guys, reaffirming what he said earlier. Young guys aren't going to get minutes just to be developing. Young guys are going to have to earn it. But this is a team that's trying to win. And in talking about the play style, things that we expected to hear from Billy Donovan in regards to that this team was going to be trying to play fast, get out in transition, things like that. One of the first key things that they were asked, though, was about Lonzo Ball. And Arturas Karnisovas gave the kind of general answer of, we expect the whole point of training camp is to get everybody ready by opening day. Now, Billy Donovan followed it up with kind of a more direct answer and said that, hey, we hope to get Lonzo out there at some point, but basically they don't know when. Lonzo Ball was later interviewed as well, and Lonzo directly answered the question even more so, saying that the goal is for him to be ready opening day, but they have not. He's not been cleared yet. It's still up in air, but he did confirm that back-to-backs are out of the question. So for those that were doubting if back-to-backs are going to happen, I've been telling you guys, back-to-backs are out of the question. This came out of Lonzo Ball's mouth. Whoa. It came out of Lonzo's mouth that back-to-backs are out of the questions. Now, he did say there will be a minutes restriction. The question is they're still trying to figure out what the minutes restriction is going to be. He even made the joke that, hey, I basically have a whole new knee, right? So I'm not expecting to be as athletic as I was before. He talked about his basketball IQ, talked about all those things. But at the end of the day, for the Lonzo Ball fans, and I feel like I keep having to address it because there's a large yet a small yet very vocal community that really thinks Lonzo is going to come back and all of a sudden be this guy for the Chicago Bulls. And he basically confirmed that, hey, we're still up in air, but I understand that I'm not going to be me as I was before. He talked about how Josh Giddey can bring in a lot of the similar things that he brought to this team and that he wants to supplement and help guys as well. And he also talked about one thing with Lonzo Ball. I love the fact that Lonzo Ball has a very important, a very honest mindset and outlook on it. He said that one of the reasons he started his podcast is because he realizes he has to set something up. He wanted to set something up that was still basically, it was close to, it was related to basketball, but it's not about him playing basketball. So if need be, he does have that, basically reaffirming that he wants to stay close to the game. And, you know, for a young guy like Lonzo Ball, and this is like let's hope first that he's going to be able to make a full return and whatever that return looks like. But I think that Lonzo, you see his love for the game of basketball and what he's talking, the fact that he wants to stay attached to the game of basketball. And to that, I respect that. I don't know how you cannot love that when it comes down to it. Camille says not only that, they think Alonzo's going to start. Yeah, the people who thought Lonzo was still going to start, they're really, really special people. But nonetheless, it is what it is when it comes down to it. So, Lonzo Ball. So, the plan is to try to get him ready by opening day. There's still some doubt there. So he still has not been cleared. I want everybody to understand that Lonzo Ball has still not been cleared. Now, something else as far as the injury that we got today that I wasn't aware of, and if somebody else was aware, I completely missed it or whatever it happened there, is that though Josh Giddey has not been cleared yet. They hope to have him ready. He said that there's a high probability he's going to be ready to go by opening night. But apparently the ankle injury that he suffered in the Olympics lingered on a lot longer than what they expected to. And so he's been rehabbing. He did make sure to say that that part of the reason the rehab has gone so long because they do have the added time there with the offseason going on and things like that. So I won't say that they necessarily are saying that if the games are going on right now, he'd be able to play, but it does seem like there's been a longer rehab period with him because of they want to make sure he's fully healthy and for that. So Josh Giddey's ankle was something that we weren't really fully aware of, the ankle injury to Josh Giddey. And because now that may mean that maybe he's not ready to go and he's not playing in preseason, which means we won't necessarily get to take a look at our starting five, which was another question that AK and Billy Donovan kind of disagreed on, is that Billy Donovan was asked about the starting five, and Billy Donovan gave the non-committal answer, basically saying, hey, we don't know exactly what we basically to say that, hey, we haven't figured that out yet. He was and Billy Donovan also said, hey, I'm not against starting three guards together. We know, Billy. We know that you're not afraid to start three guards out there. That's part of the problem, Billy. Billy Donovan, we know that you don't hesitate to play three guards out there. That's the problem. That's the problem, Billy. That's the problem. We know. We are well aware. Nonetheless, as y'all can tell, I'm a little bit upset about that. Not really upset, but it's like, we know this, Billy. But Billy Donovan confirmed. He basically said that they don't really have it line, that he's basically open to anything. And then Arturas Karnisovas basically immediately after that, when he was asked about the starting lineup, he said, hey, we traded for Josh Giddey for him to be the starter point guard. And so they were asked about that balance and the dynamic between taking the ball out of Coby White's hands and things like that. And that's something that they said, man. So Coby White as well had a very kind of honest conversation about the pairing of him and Josh Giddey, taking the ball out of his hands, him stepping into a leadership role as well, right? Like everybody out there has basically talked about Coby stepping into leadership. Zach LaVine basically said that Kobe's been ascending as a leader since he came here, especially last season. Josh Giddey talked about how Coby White was one of the first players to embrace him and have a conversation after he got traded here. Apparently him and Dalen Terry have gotten close over time, over Dalen Terry helping him get a French bulldog. So that's another thing there. But apparently Coby and Josh Giddey have built a relationship. Now, apparently that hasn't happened as much on the court because of Josh Giddey's ankle injury, but that is there. And I think that's a big part into it as well, if they're going to be your starting backcourt. I would have loved to hear from Ayo Dosunmu today. We didn't hear from Ayo really at all, but it is what it is. They had only a certain amount of time for media day. They had to pick a certain amount of players that they wanted to make available to media. To me, and you guys can tell me how you feel about this, to me, I would have rather heard from Ayo Dosunmu than Nikola Vucevic. That's just my personal opinion. Vooch basically said the same thing. We got to talk about Vooch at some point here. Nikola Vucevic really just seemed like, hey, I don't want to be here, without saying that, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But Coby White just seems like he's centered. Like he like whatever they're going to throw at him, he feels confident that he's going to be able to answer it, and he's going to be able to adapt to what this team needs. And that level of confidence from Coby White is big, right? Like we've seen him. He talked about how he went into high elevation rooms that simulate high elevation to get himself ready for how many minutes he's going to play, which is something he did say at the end of the season, that he really wanted to adjust and get his body ready to have the large role that he had last year. And so it seems like this offseason, Coby White is really focused. His workouts focus, his offseason focus, everything into being ready for the large leadership role, but also the large scoring load that he's going to have to carry for the Chicago Bulls team going forward. And it was interesting hearing that he went to work in a room that simulated high elevation. And don't overlook that, right? because you hear players talk about when they go and play in Denver and stuff like that. High elevation is something really different, and that's part of the reason why like Denver has the stamina that they do when they play and stuff like that. So if Coby has been spending his offseason working out in a high elevation simulated room, we could see Coby White have some of the best just athleticism that he's had. Like, this team is going to want to get out and run. And so if you've been working on that high elevation, you've been working on getting your lungs, you're breathing together, this team's going to go out and run. And, even Josh Giddey said as well, like, it's not about who necessarily starts the break. But the thing that could make this offensive thing is that, you have a lot of players that can start the break on this team. You have Coby, you have Giddey, you have Ayo Dosunmu, even mentioned Zach LaVine, right? And I got to double back here to 1 second as well, is that Josh Giddey talked about how he's been committed to defense this offseason. Now, we've heard something similar from Nikola Vucevic before, right? Now, Vuce was an over 30-year-old player when he said that. But to hear Josh Giddey say that he has a renewed commitment on the defensive side of the ball after playing in the Olympics, after how the season ended for him in OKC, that he understands to be a better player, he has to be active on both sides of the ball. Also talking, of course, he talked about what he can do offensively and what makes him special there. But I think if you have these players, and Josh Giddey even went so far as to say that he feels that this team can have a really good team defense. And we've seen that before. Hell, we've seen that here, right? The second year after getting DeMar DeRozan here, after Lonzo was gone, we were a pretty damn good, solid team defense team, even with having some weak on-ball defenders. So, if this team really buys into that system, that's something that Zach LaVine talked about as well. If they really buy into that, there could be a lot here as far as maybe the team is a little bit better. I still don't think they're going to be a great defensive team. I don't think they're going to be top 10 or anything like that. But if this team can avoid being at the bottom, right? We're talking about if they can be around that 18 to 20 area defensively for what we have here, I'm going to think that's a really good thing there. So, yeah, man. So let's hope that that's a thing. But Coby White really seems centered. He really seems ready to go. He seems focused, very, very focused. And I can say the same thing about Zach LaVine. LaVine was interviewed, and first off, I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures or whatever. I'll try to find some on the slide here while I'm recording. I should have got this together before. But Zach LaVine does look like he's in the best shape that I think I've ever seen Zach LaVine in. Like look at Zach LaVine here. I'm going to share this, and you guys can tell me how you feel about this, because maybe it's the placebo effect. But can I make it bigger? I don't know how well y'all can see that. But Zach LaVine looks like he's in really, really good shape here. Really good shape. Like, his face looks thinner. Zach LaVine looks like he's ready to go. He looks strong. He looks healthy. He looks focused. He's talked about the defensive side of the ball probably more than I've ever heard Zach talk about the defensive side of the ball before. Zach LaVine definitely looks like he spent his offseason getting in great shape. And, that of course you want your players playing a professional sport to be ready to go, but like, I just don't want to overlook that. Like, Zach LaVine looks ready. And let's hope that that's the case, man, because, they talked about it. A Zach LaVine that could fit in with Josh Giddey, can get out in transition, that's locked in defensively. Zach talked about how, he wants, if it's called upon him to be a defensive player, he's ready to do that as well. And I really respected what we got from Zach LaVine as far as talking about how this offseason has handled it, has affected him, I should say is the better phrase there. Just going into this offseason, hearing all the talk around him, Zach LaVine also is another player that looks motivated to prove some people wrong this offseason. Now, how much will he be able to do? We'll see. But I think he also understands that for Zach LaVine, if his goal, I'm saying if, I don't know, I haven't talked to the man. If Zach LaVine's ultimate goal is to not be a Chicago Bull, you have to be locked in with this team. You're not going to get moved off this team if teams look at it and say, hell, Zach LaVine couldn't even buy into playing with Coby White. What makes you think he could take a backseat to whatever else? How can he play with this player, right? Because you're not going any other place and being a number one. So, those are things that I think helps Zach LaVine. And sometimes you need that wake-up call. Sometimes you need that wake-up call to maybe make you take things a little bit more serious that you took for granted at one point in your life. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily Zach LaVine, right? Like I said, I don't know the man personally. He's not a Bulls player that I've met. I've met a couple of Bulls players, but he's not one that I've met. So I can't really say that. But I guess we'll see what happens there. But Zach LaVine looking like he's in the best shape of his life, looking like he's ready. That's what you want to see from Zach, and that's what you want to see from this Bulls team, in my opinion, as well. And I think that's all really good. In that, if that's the case. Now, I said we were going to talk a little about Nikola Vucevic, and maybe this is me reading into things, maybe it's not, but I'm going to say my opinion on this, and I want to be clear here that I'm saying this is my opinion. This is how I've taken looking at Nikola Vucevic's body language. It does not seem like Nikola Vucevic wants to be here. And it seems like he understands that he may be phased out. Like, he started off his interview saying that, he's old now, and saying like, you being around these old guys, you kind of realize your age and stuff like that. But like, Vooch he seemed the most like he wasn't really excited to be here for media day. Giddey seemed excited. Coby seemed excited. Even Zach LaVine didn't have like the outward excitement where it's like, yeah, I can't wait to talk to you guys, but he was focused. Zach LaVine was locked in. He started off his interview basically saying, hey, I'm committed to this team. If you didn't hear it from me, if you didn't hear it from my team, stop believing it. Even when Joe Cowley asked him a question, he kind of looked at Joe like, here we go, Joe. So, I respect that aspect of it. But Nikola Vucevic, and I want to hear from you guys in the chat. Maybe I'm off on this, but watching Vooch here, Vooch just seemed like, hey, listen, I'm just here because I got to get paid. I'm here so I don't get fined. That's what it felt like to me. It is what it is when it comes down to it. But that's the way that I took it. And Vooch just seemed like a player. Like, he talked very positively about Josh Giddey. He didn't say anything bad. It wasn't that it's not that he said anything bad, but he did say the things that he did that he talked about was really like, man, yeah, this run is over with. And keep in mind, Vooch was the guy last year at Media Day that said if we don't have success, we're close to the end of this run, and that ended up being true. So, but yeah, Vooch definitely seems like a guy who kind of understands that his time here in Chicago may be coming to an end sooner rather than later. And yeah. So, that's what it is. But, Zach LaVine reaffirmed the fact that he's happy to be here. That saying that he watched a lot of film this offseason as well, like that he studied the game and kind of figured out where and to get his spots at. So that's a really good thing as well from it. Brazil Vooch is kind of low injury, always might be that too, but wouldn't be surprised if he was checked out. See, if you go and look at Vooch's other media days, though, and this is all I'm comparing to, because you're right, Brazil, is that he is kind of just a ho-hum guy, right? He goes about his business. But Vooch at prior media days, he smiled, he joked. You remember the year that he was like, oh, yeah, you take away my three-point shot, I'm a pretty damn good center. And, he was even asked about him and Nikola Jokic, right? And talked about that, like he smiled and things. Vooch, I don't think Vooch cracked one smile today. Even when he was talking about like the growth of Coby and talking about what, exciting about getting back on the court and how him and Billy Donovan have talked about how he's going to be used and things like that. Vooch was just business. And it seems like now this is definitely a business. You're right, Flaccavelli. You are absolutely right. He did talk about mentoring Matas Busilis. You're absolutely right on that one. Absolutely right. So yeah, Vooch is like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Vooch just seems like he's coming to that realization that there's the winds of change have come through Chicago, and it may take him right off with the win. Bobby Speaks says that looks like he's been lifting weights. Great shape. He does look like he's in great shape. Jay Capone, the Don, says, "Your go Bulls," and R.I.P. Mutombo. Definitely rest in peace to the Dikembe Mutombo for sure. Zoe ain't ready. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's not ready right now. He's not ready right now. And I don't think anybody's really gonna fight that point. Giddey's ankle still in Hill mode. Hopefully he's out there ASAP to gel with players. Yeah, that was kind of the most surprising thing to come from all of this, is that Josh Giddey, his ankle isn't healed all the way, and he hasn't really been full participant in what they've been doing in mini camps and things yet. Someone in the chat was saying the entire time that Zoe was starting. Yeah, somebody always says that, and they're just very special people. Very special people. Brazil Popular says Giddey's ankle was a shocker. It was definitely a surprise. I did not expect to hear that he wasn't cleared. Denny says, I hope he doesn't get cleared. Are you talking about Giddey or are you talking about Zoe? Why do you hope Zoe doesn't get cleared? That's crazy. Ready to watch Chicago Bulls game? Well, you don't have that much longer, brother. What, October 8th, I think is our first preseason game? Hold on, let me look it up real quick. October 8th. October 8th. So we're talking about a week from tomorrow is our first preseason game. A week from tomorrow. We'll be back live post-game shows, live pre-game shows, all of that. We're back starting next week. I think we did mention he got hurt during one of those. Yeah, so we did talk about it when I did the Olympic post-game shows that he did get hurt during the Olympic Games. So we did talk about that. That wasn't too much of a surprise there. Like towards the end, he got tripped and started limping. Yes, towards the end of that, for sure. Man, you are too funny. We know. We know, man. We know. He'll probably play 4 guards out there at some point. Not saying he don't care completely, but don't be surprised to see even less defense and putting his body on the line this year. Well, here's the thing. Much like with Zach LaVine, if you want to get out of here and go to a place where you can actually compete, you gotta step up. You can't take your foot off the gas. You can't act like you don't care out there, because then you're not gonna go anywhere. I hope the Bulls show out this year. They got disrespect from the media. It's awful. Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, but listen, where the Bulls are and where they've been the last few years, the disrespect's kind of warranted, my friend. I mean, I hate to admit that. I don't want to say that about my team, but it is kind of warranted. I want to try to work out I want things to work out for Zach. Yeah, I mean, listen, I do too, Denny. Kendall Gill said he finally tried Zach LaVine tried boxing? Shout out. JD8 says I'm dying. JD, you I don't know why you're so negative. You're a very smart man. You understand where this team is, bro. And you calling Giddy, Middy, all that shit, you gotta get over that, bro. Vooch definitely seems like, hey man, I'm done with it. Vooch doesn't believe anything Billy Donovan says anymore. It's not about I'm sorry, when everything ain't about Billy Donovan, bro. Come on, man. Come on. Next Tuesday, October, I can't wait to be live again talking about games. I can't wait to talk about it. Even though this is probably around a 35-win team, I'm very excited for this. Yeah, I think this is going to be a really fun season to be involved in. I definitely think that. Jordan, JC. Hey, Jordan, by the way, I don't know if Pat didn't give you my number, get my number from Pat. I actually want to get you on Locked On Bulls sometime over the course of this season. So get my number from Pat if you don't have it, or if you already have. Did we exchange? I can't remember. But Jordan, hit me up, brother. Yeah, because if Pat didn't give you my number, I want to get you on Locked On Bulls at some point. There's a crotchety switch that flips when you turn 33. I'm 37 and I don't have the crotchety switch yet. But then again, I'm somebody who I've always hated people. I hate people. So maybe I don't have a crotchety switch because I've always been a little crotchety. I just don't like people. So, that's a point in it as well, Camille. But yeah, so I thank you guys for tuning in, man. I got to get ready to go. Yeah, Jordan, I don't know if you're on Twitter or anything. Like, if you are, I can send it to you there. But yeah. But all right, I got to get ready to go. I got to go get my son for practice. I kicked around whether I should wait to do this till after I got to go get my son from school or just do it before. I mean, a 23-minute live stream in the middle of the day, I think I'm pretty goated for that. I'm going to be doing Locked On Bulls. Typically, we go live on Locked On Bulls at 12 p.m. Chicago time. I purposely delayed it today to wait for Media Day. So we'll be live later on today to go talk about Media Day and break it down even further over on Locked On Bulls today. So that's going to be the focus there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, mainly thanks to you guys. And like I like to end everything on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Y'all already know what it is, man. I appreciate you guys so much. Peace, y'all.
Has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.